Tom, Mike Zimmer has not hidden his dissatisfaction as a defensive coach with his defense last year. So they went out and got him some defensive players. Some of them he knows.
Well, Andrew, this looked nothing like a Mike Zimmer defense in 2020 because of injuries. They had a big opt-out. Obviously, they had some young cornerbacks who just didn't have sufficient time to develop. So there's a clear pattern in what they tried to accomplish through the course of this offseason. They go out and sign Dalvin Tomlinson, the top interior defensive lineman available. They'll pair him with Michael Pierce, who opted out last season, give him one of the biggest defensive lines in the league. Just keep those guys off of Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr. Let those two run free and go make plays. They also signed the veteran cornerback Patrick Peterson on a one-year deal, try to shore up that unit. If there's a big question at this point still for Minnesota, it's going to be on the edge. Danielle Hunter coming off of a significant neck surgery that cost him the entire 2020 season. They want to ideally have the defensive line balanced out with another pass rush threat on the other side. That, Stacey, would certainly seem like one possibility for them at number 14.
Yeah, there's no question, Tom. I'm going to piggyback right on top of you here because you exposed both of these things. First, start with the health of this football team. Eric Kendricks missed substantial time, 5 games, I believe, a season ago. Anthony Barr, basically 15 games for this team, 2 very important cogs to this defense. And you mentioned Danielle Hunter, a back-to-back 14.5 sack man, 2018, 2019. He missed all of last season. So you get them back. You get Michael Pierce back in the middle of that defensive front, who, again, opted out, as you alluded to, Tom, a season ago. And the numbers don't lie, and this is what bothers head coach Mike Zimmer and company. 28th in terms of sacks in the NFL. They had only 23 last season, just 116 QB pressures. So get those guys back and think about now in the middle of this run defense that also significantly struggled. They gave up 134 rush yards per game. Dalvin Tomlinson, guys, is a character player, a captain for the Giants, coming over now to the Vikings. Again, Michael Pierce back. I think entirely along with you, Tom, they go defensive line and edge in this draft and really certify the outside of that defensive front, which will help guys like Patrick Peterson on the back end, and we'll see what happens with Jeff Gladney and his legal situation. His
legal situation in Texas, and all those defensive moves should potentially here, Tom, help Kirk Cousins and that offense. Vikings are locked in financially to Kirk Cousins. He gets another year to work with Justin Jefferson here. Obviously, not a lot of work before last season, considering the way 2020 went, and they were not on the field very often. What are they looking for year 2 together?
Well, Andrew, Kirk Cousins' 2022 salary also became fully guaranteed last month, so he's now due $56 million over the next 2 years. He is their guy, and the Vikings believe Cousins probably had his best season in 2020. Now, they'd like to be better in certain situations, including in 2-minute. They'll try to do that with Clint Kubiak taking over for his father, Gary, as the offensive coordinator. With Justin Jefferson, what he did without the benefit of an offseason certainly gives them a lot of hope about what he can add, in addition to Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook, the weaponry that they have put around Kirk Cousins. If there is a big question on that side of the ball, it's going to be the protection unit. They released Riley Reiff, who was one of their captains. Their left tackle had a very solid 2020 season. They do have some options internally. Ezra Cleveland, who played really well at guard as a rookie, could kick out there. Brian O'Neill, who has been their right tackle the past several seasons, could potentially move over to left tackle. And, of course, that is also another possibility, Stacey, for what they could do with that number 14 overall pick.
Yeah, teed me up perfectly. I've seen the general manager, Tom and Andrew, out on the circuit, tailing, if you will, some of these left tackles so rich in this draft. I go right to the offensive line. For me, this is what's most important for this team. If a guy like Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and this really high-octane Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins offense want to do some things, that's the left side of this offensive line. You know, internally, the Vikings, I think maybe, we have some holes to fill, but believe maybe not as many as people thought. But really the outside of that left side of that offensive line is critical. You mentioned some of the names, Tom. You guys have Rashad Hill, Dakota Dozier, who they re-signed. You mentioned Ezra Cleveland. They have some rotational guys, but the bottom line is they need a certifiable, and Riley Reiff is gone after 4 seasons, standing the fort there on the left side. They need a certifiable left tackle. They could go get one in this draft. And by the way, Kirk Cousins, 3rd most sacks in his career, guys, last season. 39 of them he took. As good as he was, He took some hits last season.
Yeah, and this is a very deep offensive tackle draft, actually, specifically including a lot of talent in the first round. Undoubtedly, there will be someone there at 14 if that is somebody they like. Thank you, Tom Pelissero. Thank you, Stacey Dales. NFC North and the roster reset.